Before I begin talking about this part, I should address a slight error in information I provided in the last part. For lure knockback on 4 reserve cogs and buildings, I had mentioned the knockback order in reverse. The cogs that have knockback are actually the far left and middle right cogs. Sorry for the mix-up. I've been too familiar with 3 cog reserves appearing when I have 1 cog already on the field, hence the mistake. Starting out in Minnie's Melodyland, I have the option between Tune-Up and Trap to learn. Tune-Up is still literally unusable, so I go with Trap. The main perk to Trap is that it has the highest damage output by itself, but it requires Lure to activate the Trap. Unfortunately, this means that it won't be too useful in the solo run, but it may find some niche use cases should they show up. I'll at least take a hardly usable track over an unusable one. I also got my name approved. No more Blue Cat for the rest of this run. Right off the bat, I take Tom's task to carry 40 gags. The task itself is very easy, starting out with some running around and then having to defeat 10 cogs. I go to take on a 3-story, but then my connection cuts out. Unfortunate, but at least it was right at the start, so I can just relog and find a new building. It goes as well as it could have. I then run a field office, and it also goes smoothly, but I do want to highlight a key moment of damage minimization when approached with a 2-cog reserve. I get a level 8 Two-Face and a level 7 Mingler in my Hypno Connects. Neither of these cogs have knockback, so I'm forced to take damage since none of my gags can one-hit kill without knockback. I actually opt for the Two-Face, even though it has more health and can deal more damage. But that's because even with knockback, I have to take 2 turns to kill it. Cake and the Storm does exactly 90 in their current states, so I kill the Two-Face that way. Because of that, I can now cake the Mingler for a single turn kill. This would not have been possible if I started with the Mingler and got the Two-Faced as the last cog, likely resulting in a loss instead. In more difficult building runs, I'll have to take calculated attacks like this more often. I get the last couple cogs on the street and turn in the task to Yuki. I then have to see Clef, and because I already have whole cream pie, I could just talk to him again to complete his task. I do wish Toontown Online had more gag checks like these, as I find them very nice ways to ensure that players in later areas can pull their own weight, unlike how things currently can be in TTR. I finish up this task as a whole and get my 40 pouch. The rest of Minnie's Melodyland is focused around miscellaneous tasks, so I have general freedom in how I approach things. I start off by getting some cogs in Cellbot HQ for all 3 of my tasks, then I go back to Melodyland to run some buildings and a field office as a task I grab for cogs is specific to that playground. That's generally how it goes for a little while. I just grab standard cog tasks and run buildings for them. There isn't any major points of difficulty due to my stronger gags and complete them with ease, even taking down a 4-story building at one point. Field offices still pose a threat, but that mostly comes down to my unmaxed level 6 gags, so I don't worry too much about them and focus on standard buildings instead, which net me more cogs anyway. I do end up grabbing a task to run a factory again, although it probably wasn't a great idea. It does take me a couple tries, but not as much as when I did it for Coach Z, as I have more laugh and slightly stronger gags. I just get my birthday cake to deal 56 damage after a couple failed attempts, and it works out well. Either way, I need to avoid factory tasks until I max my gags. I eventually take Anna's task, which is notorious for its low drop rate defeat and collect tasks. I'll need to deal with some Gladhanders to carry 100 beans, but it's not the worst thing in the world as they're very common in Cellbot HQ, and I can do my other tasks alongside it. Fortunately, while I am on Anna's task, I do grab 12 Gladhanders for teleport access. This is another instance of task skipping, as normally an HQ officer will offer Dr. Fret for this reward. That task actually sucks and is annoying overall, so I will gladly deal with 12 Gladhanders instead. I continue on with Anna's task while synergizing any other task I grab with hers, and eventually complete her task around the same time I complete my teleport access task. To avoid saying the same thing multiple times further, the rest of this task line is just running through buildings to complete standard defeat cog tasks. Minnie's Melodyland only has 2 forced NPC tasks if you don't include the final frame, so I have full control over how I approach the task line. Aside from taking a factory task when I shouldn't have, it was an incredibly easy process to go through. Either way, I still have that last frame to deal with, so let's go over that. Leo's task starts off with talking to Carlos at Casa de Castanets, who wants me to fish up squid ink. That goes easily, and now I have to take down a building. I do a 3-story with no trouble. I go back to Leo, and he then wants me to go to Lousy Lyrics. I then have to do a 2+ story building, no problem. After that is a 3+ story building, still no problem. I go back to Leo, and the task is done. Very uneventful after having dealt with Daisy Gardens, but honestly it's a nice break. I now have 5 tracks, and while Trap may not be incredible in a solo run, I hopefully will find potential uses for it when things are dire. Until next time.